They don't pay 30 bucks an hour for nothing. That's what I kept telling myself as I pulled off Highway 191 and onto the gravel lot of High Desert Hollow fuel stop. My headlights passed over the station's flickering neon coyote sign, red tubing stuttering in the darkness, like it couldn't decide whether to glow or die. The rest of the lot was swallowed by desert night, silent and motionless except for dust coiling in my rearview mirror. I turned off the engine and sat back in my seat, letting the tick of the cooling Civic fill the silence. The air out here was different, heavier almost. Not just heat, it had weight like a sleeping thing pressed against the car listening. The high desert of northeastern Arizona, especially along this empty stretch between Chinle and many farms, had a way of making you feel like the last living soul on earth. Towering mesas loomed to the west, barely visible under the bruised purple sky, and the stars overhead were too bright to trust. My phone buzzed. I almost didn't check it, thinking the signal was long gone by now. But the name on the screen stopped me cold. Ben. "Hey, little brother," I said, trying to sound casual. "Didn't expect a call this late. You at work?" His voice was clearer than I'd heard it in months. He sounded good, focused. "Just got here, first night. You sound better. Group therapy today. We talked about the car, about what happened. I owned it, said it out loud." My gut twisted. I wanted to say something comforting, but my throat locked up. Instead, I stared at the insect-battered floodlights above the gas pumps. "You didn't have to take this job, Tommy. Not for me. It's good money," I said. "Easy gig. Watch the pumps, ring people up, eat some Twizzlers." "What's the worst that could happen?" Ben chuckled, dry and quick. "Just be careful." "Okay, I'm always careful." We hung up after that. I tucked the phone into my pocket, grabbed my backpack from the passenger seat and stepped out into the night. The air hit like a blast furnace. Even after dark, August in Arizona didn't believe in cooling off, only easing up on the punishment. The asphalt still radiated heat. Mixed with the scent of gasoline, there was something else, something faint and metallic, almost like blood. The bell over the door jingled when I stepped inside. The place was a time capsule, yellowed linoleum floors, dusty racks stacked with jerky and Funyuns, a coffee station that looked like it hadn't been cleaned since Bush Sr. was in office. An old boombox on the counter played low-volume classic rock, something from Tom Petty, maybe just loud enough to remind you you were still alive. You must be Tommy. I turned to see a man stepping out from the back room. Earl Tallman was exactly as his voice had sounded over the phone's solid sun-worn, with deep crow's feet carved into his face. He wore his silver hair pulled back in a ponytail, and turquoise stones gleamed on a leather cuff around one wrist. "Call me Tommy," I said, extending a hand. "Earl," he said, gripping my hand in a firm, calloused shake. "Owner, manager, janitor, occasional mechanic. Welcome to High Desert Hollow. Appreciate the job," I said. "Hard to find anyone paying a decent wage these days." Something passed across his face, quick, like a memory he didn't want. "Night shift ain't for everyone. Last 3 guys quit midweek. Their loss." He didn't smile. Instead, he gestured to the corner booth behind the counter, a small reinforced cubicle with bulletproof glass and a drawer beneath the window. It looked like something out of a 1990s bank or a bad neighborhood liquor store. "You'll work from inside there. Locks automatically at 10 p.m. From that point on, you handle everything through the drawer." I stepped inside and examined the setup. Register stool, a fan too small to matter. Old, but it would do. Earl pointed to a panel of dusty toggle switches behind the counter. "That's how you authorize the pumps. Customers pay here, then you flip the switch. Security cameras cover most of the lot. Panic buttons under the register, but don't rely on it. Tribal police are at least 40 minutes out. So, don't panic." He didn't laugh. "There are rules," he said. "You follow them, you'll be fine." I nodded, more sober now. First, he said, "Don't sell any jerky or tobacco to anyone with yellow eyes." I blinked. "Yellow like jaundice? No, not like jaundice. You'll know it when you see it." He was dead serious. My mouth went dry. "Second, if the pumps start leaking a black fluid, not gas, something thicker, darker, lock the doors and play track 3 on the boombox." I glanced at the battered cassette deck. "What's on track 3A chant?" "Old Navajo prayer. Don't stop it until the leaking stops." "Okay," I said slowly. And third, he said, pointing to a dusty blue payphone near the bathrooms. "Never answer that phone. Does it even work?" "It shouldn't." I stared at the phone. It looked like it hadn't rung since Clinton's first term. "You got questions?" he asked. "A dozen." He waited. I shook my head. "No, sir. No jerky for yellow eyes. Track 3 for the black stuff. Ignore the phone." "Good." He handed me a small ring of keys. "Bathroom's out back. Don't stay in there too long. Some guys say the miracle plays tricks." I wanted to ask what kind of tricks, but something in his tone told me not to. He gave me a brief tour of the stockroom, pointed out the emergency contact sheet taped to the side of the register, then walked toward the front door. "One more thing," he said, hand on the frame. "Between 2 and 4 a.m., things can get strange. Just follow the rules." And with that, he was gone. The bell over the door jingled, and I watched his pickup disappear into the dark taillights, fading down the highway until I was truly alone. The first few hours passed without much drama. I got used to the register, wiped down counters that didn't need wiping, organized the gum rack. I had 2 customers by midnight, a woman buying Marlboros and a teenager heading to Flagstaff who barely made eye contact. At 1:30, a trucker bowled in. Big guy. Tattoos faded into his forearms like old ink stains. He grabbed a Red Bull and a lighter. "Pump 4, he said. As I rang him up, I noticed something strange. His shadow on the wall, it was too long, misshapen. The outline of his head had protrusions like small antlers. I blinked. It looked normal again. "Long haul?" I asked. "Always is," he said, voice like gravel. "You're new?" He added, not a question. "First night," he didn't smile. "Won't be many." I watched him fuel up his motions, too smooth, too slow. When he was done, he just stood there, staring at the booth. Then he got in his truck and drove away. I sat back down, hands shaking a little. At 2:00 a.m., the boombox skipped to another song. The payphone rang. I didn't move, just sat there in the bulletproof booth, counting the seconds between each ring. Earl's voice echoed in my memory. "Never answer that phone." The desert outside was still, but I could feel it shifting, breathing, listening. I had no idea then what this place was, but I would soon, and I wouldn't be the same again. The payphone rang again. I stared at it from inside the booth, unmoving. The blue plastic shell glowed faintly under the buzzing fluorescent lights, its receiver swinging slightly like it had been nudged by invisible fingers. The sound cut through the soft pulse of the boombox, sharp, mechanical, insistent. It wasn't supposed to work. That's what Earl had said, but it rang with the clarity of something that wanted to be heard. I sat frozen for another 10 seconds, heart thudding, then stepped out of the booth. Each ring seemed to pull at me like fishing line through the gut. I told myself I wouldn't pick it up. Just check it. Make sure it wasn't something explainable. Maybe a wiring short, a prank, a misrouted line. The phone rang again, louder now, or maybe just closer. I reached out. "Don't be an idiot," I whispered, but my hand kept moving. The moment my fingers touched the receiver, the ringing stopped. The silence was deafening. I held the handset to my ear. Nothing. Then came static, harsh like sand scraping metal, and beneath it a voice. Female. Old. Wet. "They're using you." I yanked the phone from my ear and stared at it. Static crackled through the line like waves crashing inside a tin can. My thumb hovered over the hang-up button, but I brought it back to my ear. "Who is this?" I asked. "The pumps aren't for gas," the voice hissed. "They feed something older." My breath caught. "Earl," I whispered. "He knows. Ask about his wife." "What about her?" A pause. "I was his wife." Then came the sound of bones cracking, wet and deliberate, and the line went dead. I stood there for a full minute, breathing through my nose, jaw clenched tight enough to pop. The boombox hummed on unfazed, now playing Life in the Fast Lane at its usual barely audible volume. I hung up the receiver. Then the overhead lights flickered. Once, twice. Something moved outside. I rushed back into the booth and slammed the door shut. The automatic lock clicked behind me. On the monitors, I scanned the feed from the security cameras. Nothing. Just the empty pumps bathed in dim amber light, the cracked pavement, the slow sway of the cactus near the bathroom wall. I stared at pump 4, the one the trucker had used. Something was dripping from its base. At first I thought it was just oil, or maybe a piss overflow. But the puddle wasn't spreading like liquid, it was pulsing, breathing. A thick, viscous black substance was seeping from the pump's lower housing, and it shimmered wrong under the light. Not like gas, more like tar mixed with motor oil, with something alive. My mind raced. I'd seen this before. Or rather, Earl had warned me. If the pumps start leaking black fluid, not gas, something darker, lock the doors and play track 3. I scrambled out of the booth and hit the lock panel again, double-checking that everything was sealed. Then I ran to the counter, fumbled with the boombox, and hit eject. Inside, the cassette tape sat like a relic of a forgotten era, its label long worn off. I fast-forwarded, counting the clicks. 1, 2, 3. I hit play. At first, there was only static. Then a voice, low, rhythmic male, chanting in a language I didn't understand. The cadence was measured, ancient. It wasn't music, it was prayer. Real and raw, something meant to do rather than entertain. The air shifted around me. Outside on the monitors, the black liquid at pump 4 began to move. Not spread move. It contracted, pulled away from the edges of the pavement, recoiling like it was in pain. Slowly it drew back toward the pump nozzle against gravity, slithering up into the housing until it vanished. I stood rooted to the spot watching. The chant continued for another minute, then faded. Silence returned. I stopped the tape and ejected it, holding it for a moment. It felt warm. I didn't even want to imagine what would have happened if I hadn't played it. But the rest of the night passed in a surreal haze. No customers. No more strange phone calls. Just me sitting inside that booth, clutching the boombox like a lifeline, staring out into the desert and wondering what I'd gotten myself into. At 5:45 a.m., I saw headlights bouncing along the highway. A moment later, Earl's battered Ford pickup pulled into the lot, crunching gravel beneath its tires. He stepped out slowly, a to-go coffee in one hand, and looked up at the booth. I unlocked the door and stepped out. "Quiet night?" he asked. I hesitated, then nodded, mostly. Earl's eyes scanned my face like he could read every lie I didn't tell. "You play the tape?" "Yes." "Good." He sipped his coffee. "How'd you know pump 4 started leaking something that wasn't gas?" I said. "It didn't feel right." He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked over to the pump and bent down to inspect it. His fingers brushed the edge of the concrete where the puddle had been. He stood slowly. "You see anything else?" he asked. Out of place, the phone rang. That got his attention. His eyes narrowed. "Did you answer?" I nodded. He didn't yell. Didn't look angry. But something behind his eyes darkened like the sun behind thunderclouds. "What did it say?" I hesitated. "Said you know what's going on here. That your wife, that she was involved." Earl didn't move. "Do you believe it?" he asked quietly. "I don't know what I believe," I admitted. He gave a single nod, like that was the right answer. "Some things you're better off not knowing. But the phone, if it rings again, don't pick it up." "Too late," I said. He handed me a folded $100 bill. "Bonus for making it through the first night. Is that what this is?" "A test." Earl didn't smile. "It's a filter. The ones who can't follow the rules don't last." "You did." I pocketed the cash. "Last question," I said as we stood near the bathroom entrance. "What's with the mirror?" Earl didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Some people see things in it that ain't there. Others see what is there but weren't ready to know." I looked toward the door. "You used it last night." "Yeah." "Did it feel like something was watching?" "Kind of," I admitted. Earl nodded. "That's not the mirror. That's the desert. It remembers." With that, he turned and walked back into the store. I watched him go, the desert wind picking up around us, stirring sand across the lot. I got into my Civic and started the engine. The air inside was cooler than I remembered. More still. I didn't turn on the radio, didn't check my phone. I just drove. The sun was rising behind the mesas, casting long shadows across the highway. And for the first time, I wondered if I'd stepped into something I wouldn't walk back out of. And somewhere deep inside me, a voice whispered, "This isn't just a job. It was a ritual, and I was already part of it." I didn't sleep well that day. I tried, pulled the blackout curtains tight, turned off my phone, even ran the ceiling fan for the white noise. But my body stayed tense like it hadn't gotten the memo that the night was over. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the black fluid slithering back into the pump like a snake retreating into its hole. I saw the payphone vibrating, heard the voice again. "They're using you." By noon, I gave up on sleep. I got up, made burnt toast and instant coffee, and sat on the edge of the motel bed, staring at the dust-covered carpet. My motel room wasn't much, just 2 beds, a mini fridge that hummed like it had a secret, and a TV that only picked up 3 channels. I didn't need more. I wasn't planning on staying long. My phone buzzed. "Ben." "Hey," I answered. "You sound like hell." "I feel worse." There was a pause, then Ben said, "I had another dream last night." My stomach clenched. "Same one mostly. Except this time Mom was there." My mouth went dry. "She wasn't herself," Ben continued. "Her face kept changing, like it was wearing her skin, not really her." "What did she say?" "She said you were in danger, that you were feeding something you shouldn't." I didn't know what to say. Ben exhaled slowly on the other end. "This is more than just a bad job, isn't it?" "Yeah," I admitted. "It is." Another pause. "You gonna quit?" "I want to," I said, "but I need the money. And part of me thinks if I leave now, something worse happens. Worse than leaking hell juice and demon phones." I gave a weak laugh. "It's not just the station, Ben. It's the land. The whole place feels like it remembers things it shouldn't." Ben went quiet for a moment. I've been reading, he said, about the Navajo, about skinwalkers. That got my attention. Those stories. They're not metaphors, are they, he asked. No, I said. They're warnings. That afternoon, I drove into Chinle and found the smallest library I'd ever seen tucked between a laundromat and a feed store. The librarian gave me a look when I asked for material on Navajo folklore, but she didn't say no. She brought me a thin stack, half anthropology, half oral history, and left me to it. Most of it was what you'd expect: old legends about shapeshifters, curses, stories passed down through families. Skinwalkers, Yi Nao Lushi, were witches, not monsters. At least not at first. They were people who'd performed forbidden rites, given up their humanity to gain unnatural powers. They could take animal form, mimic voices, move between worlds. They also couldn't be killed by conventional means. And according to several of the old accounts, they fed on essence life force. Not always by killing, sometimes just by proximity, sometimes through objects, sometimes through rituals. The more I read, the more I started to piece it together. The black fluid, the chant, the eyes, and Earl. There was a newspaper clipping at the back of one book, yellowed and crumbling, a grainy photo of a much younger Earl standing beside a tribal elder. The caption read, "Caretakers of the hollow fuel stop, family keeps watch over sacred land." I didn't remember falling asleep in that library. But when I opened my eyes, the sun was gone and the sky outside the window had deepened to the color of bruises. I checked my phone. 6:22 p.m. Time to go. That night, I arrived early to the station. Earl wasn't there. The place looked the same, dusty, still quietly wrong, but something was different. The neon coyote on the sign wasn't flickering anymore. It was steady now, like it had made up its mind. Inside, I flipped on the lights and started my usual pre-shift checks. Stockroom, clean counters, coffee filter replaced, register drawer balanced, everything in its place. Except the mirror. The mirror in the bathroom wasn't right. It didn't reflect the fluorescent light correctly. The edges of the frame seemed to bend slightly inward, like the glass was trying to pull itself inward. My reflection blinked a beat too late. When I stepped closer, I felt something cold press against the inside of my ribcage like I'd swallowed ice. I shut the door quickly and locked it. By midnight, I'd had one customer, a guy on a motorcycle who didn't even take his helmet off. Paid in cash, didn't say a word. I watched him ride off into the dark and prayed he didn't stop again. I sat in the booth staring at the boombox. The cassette was still inside. I couldn't shake the voice on the phone. Ask about his wife. So I did. I pulled up the internet and searched Earl Tallman Navajo wife obituary. And there it was. Lena Tallman died 2003. Car accident. No remains recovered. Last seen heading toward Route 191. Her car was found empty, driver's side door open. No blood, no tracks, just vanished. I scrolled further down. One commenter under a forum post claimed to have seen a woman matching her description wandering the rocks near many farms years later. Same sundress, same necklace, yellow eyes. My hand trembled. I'd seen her. She was the one who tried to buy jerky on my first night. At 1:47 a.m., the station fell completely silent. No music, no hum from the refrigerators, not even the rattle of the AC vent. I looked up. The monitors were blank. All four feeds had gone to static. And then slowly the payphone started to ring. The sound was soft this time, almost polite, like a whisper trying not to wake a sleeping house. I didn't move. This time I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled out my phone and texted Ben. "You were right. This job is cursed. I think I'm next. No bars, no service, of course." I stepped into the booth, locked the door behind me, and grabbed a pen and notebook from the drawer. I started to write everything I'd seen. The rules, the phone, the woman, the black fluid. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but if I disappeared, I wanted someone to know. Halfway through the page, I heard a new sound. Dripping. Slow. Thick. I looked at the monitor for pump 4. The black fluid was back, but this time it was coming from above the nozzle, trailing upward like a string of ink defying gravity. The boombox clicked. Automatically. The tape began to play. Track 3. The chant. I hadn't touched it. Outside, the wind kicked up, blowing sand across the lot in chaotic bursts. The fluid pulsed, expanded, and then, just like before, slowly retreated. When the chant ended, the silence fell hard. Heavier than before. Like something was waiting, I leaned forward, looking closer at the monitor. There was something behind pump 4, something tall, watching. I blinked. Gone. Chilak at 4:08 a.m., Earl returned. He pulled up slow headlights off as if not to disturb whatever slept here. He stepped out, eyes scanning the pumps. How was your night, he asked. I didn't answer. Earl looked at me. Really looked. You saw her again, didn't you, Lena? I asked. He flinched. She's not her anymore, he said quietly. Whatever she was, she's part of them now. What are they? He shook his head. Doesn't matter. You're here now. That's what counts. No, I said, stepping back. That's what damns me. He didn't argue, just handed me another $100 bill. 3 more nights, he said. Then you'll understand everything. I didn't take the money. I just got in my rush and drove ears ringing stomach, hollow head spinning with a single thought that wouldn't let go. 3 more nights, and the desert remembers. The sky bled copper as I drove to the station. Evening was falling over the high desert, casting long, bruised shadows across Highway 191. Mesas loomed like silent judges, their shapes dark against the dying light. I hadn't spoken to Ben since the night before. I'd typed out 6 texts, none of which I sent. What could I say? Hey, little brother, you were right. Your job interview was actually a setup for human sacrifice. The thought made my stomach turn. When I pulled into the gravel lot, the place looked different. Not visibly, but the air had a charge to it like the moment before a monsoon. Heavy, expectant. The neon coyote sign flickered erratically, the red outline twitching like it was trying to draw breath. Earl's truck was already there. That was new. I parked next to it and sat for a moment with the engine idling. I half expected him to walk out and wave me off, tell me it was over, job canceled, he'd found someone else. But the front door just sat there waiting. I killed the engine, stepped out, and the heat swallowed me. It was hotter than it should have been for dusk, the kind of dry, pressing heat that made your sweat vanish before it even formed. I grabbed my bag and approached the door. No jingle from the bell when I walked in. The sound was gone, all of it. No hum of refrigeration, no tape in the boombox, no flickering lights, just silence. Earl was nowhere in sight. The store looked frozen, the rack still full, the register light blinking. But the shadows were wrong, longer than they should be. Curved where they should be straight. And the windows, God, the windows were like mirrors now. Opaque, black. They didn't reflect anything inside. Earl, I called out, nothing. Then from the back room came his voice. In here, Tommy, except it didn't sound like Earl. Not exactly. His voice was slower, like it had to be pulled through syrup, like something was dragging it out of him. I walked around the counter through the doorway into the stockroom and stopped. The room had changed. Gone were the shelves of paper towels and oil cans. The space had been rearranged, repurposed into something ancient. A makeshift altar now sat against the back wall, a weathered metal table upon which rested a figurine shaped like a coyote, its surface etched with symbols I couldn't read. Next to it lay a bone-handled knife, its blade dark with something wet. Earl stood beside it, his back to me, shoulders rising and falling, slowly. His silver hair was loose around his neck, longer than I remembered. Earl, I said, voice low. He turned. His face was the same. Almost, but the look in his eyes wasn't. The humor was gone, the guarded professionalism. What was left was something primal. Hungry. You came, he said. His voice had returned to normal. Calm, measured. Was I supposed to? I wasn't sure. Most don't. They run. Maybe I should have. Earl chuckled. It's too late for that now. I took a step back. My hand brushed the edge of a shelf, but there was nothing behind me but wall. What is this place? I asked. Really? Earl walked to the table and picked up the clay coyote, turning it slowly in his hands. This isn't a gas station, he said. It's a veil, a mask, a way to hide something older than roads or wires, something that sleeps beneath this land, but not always peacefully. The skinwalkers, I said. He nodded. They're not just stories, Tommy. They're sentinels. Spirits twisted by blood and time, bound to this ground long ago through a pact made by my ancestors. And now they feed through the pumps. Not fuel. Not anymore. That's just camouflage. The pumps take energy, small offerings from travelers. A little fear, a little exhaustion, sometimes a drop of blood. It kept them satisfied. Quiet. But it's not working anymore, I said. Earl placed the coyote figure back on the table. No, too few people stop these days. Pay at the pump never come inside. The balance is off. They're waking. So you need a bigger offering. He nodded. A willing one is best. But willing or not, the offering must be made. My pulse pounded. Why me? You answered the phone. You followed the rules. You saw the signs and didn't run. That makes you rare. Valuable. The spirits, they noticed that kind of resolve. I laughed bitter. You were going to offer my brother first, weren't you? Earl hesitated. He wasn't right. Too weak. Too broken. And I'm what stronger meat. You're the gatekeeper, he said. The next in line. No, I said, backing toward the door. No way in hell. But the door wasn't there anymore. Where it had been was now only rock. Solid red, unbroken sandstone. Panic surged. What did you do? Earl sighed almost apologetically. You're already inside the hollow, Tommy. You stepped through the veil the moment you opened that door. You lied to me. I protected you. I taught you the rules. You survived 3 nights. You proved yourself. He pulled a length of chain from beneath the table. Don't make this harder than it has to be. I turned to run, but the floor shifted beneath me, tilted somehow, and I stumbled. Earl moved fast. Too fast. Inhuman. He grabbed my wrist and wrapped the chain around it. Cold bit into my skin like dry ice. I kicked, twisted, clawed, but he was strong, unnaturally strong. You'll save lives, Tommy, he grunted as he secured the other chain to my opposite wrist. They'll sleep for another generation. And if I refuse, they'll wake hungry. He stepped back. I pulled against the chains. They held tight. The wall behind the altar rippled. It opened not like a door, but like an eyelid, and beyond it was not the back of a stockroom, but open desert. A clearing lit by moonlight encircled by red rock formations I hadn't seen before. In the center stood 4 massive pillars, each one shaped like the pumps outside but stripped of casing. Bone old, etched with markings that pulsed faintly in the dark. The real hollow, Earl said. He stepped through the opening, dragging me with him. Outside the air was colder, the wind sharper, the silence deeper. I was pulled to the center of the clearing and fastened to one of the bone pumps. Earl stood a few feet away, lighting sage from a small bowl. The smoke curled upward, carried away by an invisible current. They're coming, he said softly. A howl pierced the night, high and broken. Then another, and another. Shapes moved at the edge of the clearing, tall, too thin, flickering like shadows caught in strobe light. I felt them watching, waiting. Earl knelt, clutching the clay coyote. It's almost time. And I knew with a cold certainty that sat in my bones that if I didn't escape, I'd never leave this place. Not as myself. Maybe not at all. The chains burned cold. They weren't made of steel, not really, at least, not any metal I'd ever handled in the shop. The links were bone white but not brittle, carved with symbols, etched deep like someone had used a hot blade centuries ago and never stopped drawing. I'd been bound to one of the bone pillars in the clearing, wrists stretched just enough to rob me of leverage. Around me, 3 other pumps formed a square, ancient siblings of the ones back at the station, only these weren't wrapped in hoses and displays. These stood raw, unmasked, sacred in some horrifying way. I could feel them hum through the earth, and beyond the clearing and the shadows beneath the rocks, something moved. Not a lot, just enough to let me know they were there. Watching, waiting. Earl stood across from me at the altar, murmuring in a low voice I didn't recognize. He held the clay coyote close to his chest. His eyes were closed, his lips moving in steady rhythm. Smoke from the burning sage drifted around him, but none of it touched the bone pumps. It parted in the air like something was pushing it back. You know this isn't right, I said, pulling against the chains. Earl didn't answer. I helped you run this place. I followed your damn rules. I didn't break anything. You obeyed, he interrupted without opening his eyes. That's what makes you the right one. To die, to serve. He opened his eyes now, calm and steady. It's not death, it's transformation. Continuity. The hollow always requires a keeper and the old ones. They need their offering. I spat at the ground. They need a scapegoat. Earl exhaled almost sadly. I didn't make the rules. My grandfather did. My father continued them. Now it's me, and soon it should have been you. I'm not going to be part of this. You already are, he said. The moment you answered that phone. The howl came again. Closer now. No longer from one direction, but many. High, broken, too long in the throat to be human. Shadows circled the edges of the clearing, low to the ground, and then tall as trees, morphing from second to second. The skinwalkers had arrived. Earl turned back toward the altar and raised the clay coyote above his head. I stopped struggling, instead I focused. I was a mechanic before I was anything else. I understood pressure points, bolts, tension. I'd rebuilt transmissions with my eyes half shut. That kind of tactile memory doesn't go away even when your life's on the line. I shifted my wrist, angling the chain just right. One of the etchings on the bone pump jutted out sharp and irregular, a weakness in a system. I started to grind the link against it, slow, careful, quiet. Behind Earl, the shadows began to close in. A skinwalker stepped forward into the moonlight, its limbs two long joints wrong, like a scarecrow sewn by someone who'd never seen a real body. Its head cocked sideways as it sniffed the air. Earl dropped to his knees, whispering frantically. The chain screeched once. I froze. He didn't hear. The creature stepped closer. Its eyes glowed faintly yellow. Its chest rose and fell too quickly as if panting in anticipation. Another link weakened. Another twist. The chain cracked. One wrist free. I moved fast, adrenaline surging, yanking the rest of the chain forward, breaking the weak point completely. My left arm screamed in protest, but I didn't stop. I dropped to the ground, hard hammering, and rolled behind the nearest bone pillar as the creature leapt forward. It didn't go for me. It went for Earl. No, he shouted, holding the clay figure up like a shield. I gave you what you wanted. He's the one. The skinwalker stopped inches from him. It sniffed. Then it turned, right toward me. I ran. My boots kicked up sand and dust as I sprinted out of the circle through the mouth of the canyon back into the open desert. The veil shimmered around me, thin as spider silk, but I pushed through it, tumbling into the back room of the station like I'd fallen through water. The altar was gone. The room was back to normal. Shelves, cleaning supplies, stained mop bucket. But the air still thrummed with power. I didn't have much time. I tore open Earl's locker and found what I hoped would be there, his keyring, and an emergency toolkit tucked into a black duffel bag. I rushed outside, heart thudding. The station was empty, dark. The neon coyote had gone black. But the pumps still stood. I knew what I had to do. The underground tanks, thousands of gallons of gas, sat beneath the lot. I'd seen the schematics on day one. If I could get them flowing, disable the emergency cutoffs, flood the lot, I could burn this place down. Burn it all. I drove Earl's truck directly onto the pump island. His keys worked immediately. He kept a maintenance panel access key right on the ring. I popped the panels open one by one. Behind the plastic, the machines bled secrets. Beneath the tech, the bone showed through, real bone, smooth and ancient, with veins of black stone or maybe something worse. I ignored it. I cut the wires open, the emergency valves, and jammed the trigger levers open using a wrench, duct tape, and a gas cap I'd found in the glove box. One pump, two, three, four. Gas poured across the concrete. The smell was dizzying. I grabbed a roll of shop towels, soaked it in fuel, and wrapped it around a makeshift ignition device, a watch battery, stripped wiring from the stereo, and a metal paperclip. A crude, slow-burn spark delay. 30 seconds, give or take. I crouched beside the truck, clutching the clay coyote in my hand. It had fallen from Earl's altar, now cracked but still intact, still pulsing. The key. From the corner of my eye, I saw movement. The shadows were coming. Long legs, yellow eyes. Dozens. I placed the spark device at the edge of the fuel puddle and lit the towel. Then I ran. The explosion came behind me, huge, concussive, loud enough to steal the air from my lungs. A fireball rose into the sky, bright as a second sun. The pumps went up one by one, fire trailing into the tanks underground, igniting them like buried bombs. The ground shook. The windows blew out. Flames licked the sky, and still I ran out past the pumps, down the road, away from the heat and the roar. When I turned back, the entire station was a pillar of fire. And the skinwalkers. They screamed, long, human-sounding wails full of rage and sorrow. Their bodies shimmered in the firelight, unraveling like thread pulled from old cloth. They disintegrated mid-run, dissolving into ash and smoke. The clay coyote in my hand grew hot. Throw it in the flames, I did. It sailed into the inferno, vanishing into the core of the fire. And then everything went still. No screams, no movement. Only the fire burning pure and blue-white now, like something holy had been released. I fell to my knees. I didn't know what I'd just done, but I knew what I'd stopped. And for the first time since starting the job, I felt like I could breathe. The world burned behind me. I drove blindly, hands locked to the wheel, eyes wide, heart hammering. My ears rang from the blast, but the truck roared beneath me, tires skidding across loose sand as I veered off the lot and back onto Highway 191. In the rearview mirror, the station had become a pyre. A pillar of white-blue flame clawed at the sky, bright enough to bleach the desert. The pumps were gone. The store was collapsing inward. Everything, the altar, the chains, the lies going up in smoke. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt watched. I hit the gas harder. The truck jolted over a bump, tires screeching as I pushed past 60, then 70. The desert blurred around me. red rock, sand, darkness. Ahead I saw the horizon glow civilization. Lights, safety. But something wasn't right. The farther I drove, the more the road began to feel familiar. Too familiar. Then I saw it. Out of the dark, like a ghost resurrected, the silhouette of a station emerged. The neon coyote sign, flickering, the pumps, standing, untouched. No, no. I slammed the brakes. The truck skidded across gravel and came to a jerking halt, dust billowing up like smoke around me. I stared. It was the same station, same cracks in the windows, same scorch marks near the curb, but intact, still standing. The store's windows gleamed with reflectionless black. The pumps hummed like they were waiting. I hadn't escaped. I'd circled back. Or worse, the road had looped me. Panic surged in my throat. I threw the truck in reverse and punched it, backed onto the highway, spinning a full 180, then took off in the opposite direction, faster this time, fighting the rising scream building in my chest. 20 minutes passed. Nothing but highway and shadow. Then through the windshield, the coyote. Again, same lot, same sign, same station. Still standing. The flames were gone. The fire never happened. Or maybe it had somewhere else. I killed the engine. Silence rushed in. I sat there stunned, unable to move. The night around me was impossibly still, like the desert was holding its breath. Then the payphone inside the store started to ring. I could hear it from the truck. Shrill, rhythmic, impossible. I clenched the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The clay coyote, I'd thrown it into the fire. How could the station be whole? How could the phone ring? Unless the station wasn't physical anymore. Unless I'd crossed some kind of threshold. A border. A boundary. I opened the door and stepped out, boots crunching on gravel. The air was cold now, even though it was still August. My breath fogged in front of me. There was no wind, not even a whisper. The bell didn't jingle when I opened the door. Inside, the store was exactly as I remembered it on my first night. Jerky rack, coffee pot, boombox. But the walls looked wrong, not solid anymore. Like they were paper stretched too tight over something pulsing beneath. Light didn't settle right here. Shadows moved when I wasn't looking at them directly. And the payphone, it rang again. Louder now, the sound vibrating in my chest. I stepped toward it, feet heavy. The receiver twitched. I picked it up. The same voice, female, distant, like it was speaking through a storm drain. You broke the pumps, but not the deal. What are you? I demanded. The voice sighed. Not what I was. Once I was Lena, Earl's wife, a mother. Now, static surged. Now I'm just part of the hollow. I threw the token into the fire. I ended this. You ended a version. The voice dropped lower. But this place doesn't live in just one reality. It anchors itself to those who remember, to those it touches. You're inside it now. I stepped back, pulse thundering. You mean I'm trapped? Unless you sever the memory, burn it from every world it clings to, how the hollow holds to the heart. You must make it forget you, or you'll never leave. Then the phone went dead. I stared at it, breathing hard. Make the hollow forget me. How the hell was I supposed to do that? Behind me, the lights flickered. On the back wall, the mirror in the bathroom glowed faintly like it was illuminated from within. It shimmered, and for just a second, I saw my reflection smile at me, but I hadn't moved. I backed away slowly. Then I heard it, a whisper right behind me. Gatekeeper. I spun. Nothing. But I felt it. Something was in the store with me. The air grew thick. My lungs fought to pull in breath. I stumbled back toward the front door and froze. There outside, not 50 feet from the pumps, stood a figure. Tall, thin, wrong. It had no face, just a smooth stretch of skin, like a doll's head left in the sun too long. Its arms hung too low, its legs bent in reverse, and it was staring at me. I grabbed the emergency axe from under the counter. The glass broke like paper. I ran to the door, flung it open, and the figure was gone. No footprints, no sound. But the sky had changed. No stars, no moon, just a swirling red-black sky like burning sand frozen mid-motion. The world was folding in on itself. I jumped into the truck, started the engine, and peeled out, swerving across the empty highway. And again, the same thought came back. This isn't real. This is the hollow's echo, its trap. I needed something more than fire. I needed to kill the memory, burn myself out of its story. That night, I didn't go home. I didn't sleep. Instead, I drove to the Navajo Tribal Archive office in Window Rock, closed, obviously, But I broke in through the side door. Inside, under dim light and creaking floors, I searched, and I found it. A ledger. Old, handwritten. List of keepers. Every generation. Names, dates, sacrifices. And at the bottom, a space for the next name. Blank. Waiting. I tore the page out, stuffed it in my jacket, and doused the book in lighter fluid from a nearby janitor closet. I lit it. Watched it burn until it was nothing but curling black ash. Then I took the ashes and walked out into the desert and scattered them under the stars. The wind picked up for the first time in hours, carried the dust into the night, carried the memory. I didn't know if it was enough, but when I looked up at the sky, I saw stars again. Clear, cold, honest, and the road behind me stayed dark. No station, no pumps, no coyote. The hollow, for now, had let go. 1 week later, I met Ben outside the rehab facility in Holbrook. He looked better, healthier than I'd seen him in years. Tan skin clearing up, eyes focused. He smiled when he saw me. No crutches, no twitching hands, just my brother again. It should have been the happiest moment in years, but all I felt was dread. Still driving that beast, he said, nodding toward the Civic, which looked like it had survived a riot. Dented side panel, burned patch on the back fender. Dust caked along the windshield. Barely, I replied. He slid into the passenger seat. The doors thunked shut like a coffin lid. So he said, "You burn it down." I stared at him. What? The station. The dream stopped. The night after I dreamed of Mom bleeding sand from her eyes, I woke up and it was just gone. Silence, like someone hit the mute button in my head. I gripped the steering wheel. It didn't stay gone, I muttered. Ben shifted in his seat. What do you mean? I started driving. I burned it, yeah. Blew the tanks, destroyed the pumps, scattered the ashes of their damn ledger into the desert. But I don't think it was ever about the station. That was just the skin. Ben went quiet. Outside the windows, the desert stretched, winding in and endless, a pale ocean of dust and rock under the blistering sun. We passed a roadside shrine, faded flowers, a cross made of pipe, and a weathered photo stapled to a plank. Are you saying it's still here? No, I said. Worse. It might be in us now. Why, we drove west toward California, where we figured the memories would be just that, memories. We made it past Flagstaff by nightfall and found a cheap motel just outside Kingman. Small roadside, clean enough. Ben fell asleep almost immediately. I sat on the bed staring at the ceiling, trying not to remember the way the walls of the station had breathed. How the floor shifted beneath my boots like it was trying to roll over and swallow me. I got up to use the bathroom and froze in front of the mirror. Not because of what I saw, but because I didn't. No reflection, just a black smear like light had been sucked out of the glass. I leaned forward. The smear leaned too. But it wasn't me. The outline was wrong. Shoulders higher, head tilted, eyes glowing faint yellow. I stepped back so hard I slammed into the towel rack metal, screeching against tile. The image disappeared. I turned the lights off and on. The mirror worked again, like nothing happened. Like the hollow was saying, I'm still watching. The next morning, Ben sat on the motel porch with a cup of gas station coffee, staring into the sun like he was trying to outrun the dark. Had the dream again, he said. I sat beside him. Was it her? He nodded. Mom, or something using her face. She stood in the desert with this giant black hole behind her, and she kept saying the same thing. What? He turned to me. You didn't sever it. You relocated it. I felt the words hit like a stone to the ribs, where Ben looked down at the coffee. I think it's attached to you. Later that afternoon, as we crossed the Arizona-California border, I decided to test a theory. We stopped at a small truck stop, normal, modern, full of bored-looking travelers and flickering slot machines in the corner. I stepped into the bathroom, looked at the mirror. Normal. I exhaled. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out the one thing I hadn't thrown into the fire, a tiny piece of the clay coyote. A fragment, barely the size of a coin. It had been in my jeans. I hadn't even realized I'd kept it. I set it on the sink, and the lights in the bathroom dimmed. The air thickened, and the mirror bled. A thin black fluid dripped from the bottom edge of the glass, pooling silently on the ceramic sink. I grabbed the shard, shoved it back into my pocket, and everything stopped. Lights brightened, air cleared, mirror wiped clean. I stared at myself. Whatever the hollow was, it had latched onto me. Not the place. Me. That night, we camped near Joshua Tree, not trusting any more roadside inns. I built a fire and Ben sat across from me, wrapped in a blanket, silent. What if you threw it away? He asked, nodding at my pocket. The shard. It won't matter, I said. I think I'm the shard now. We sat in silence, watching the flames crackle the sky overhead, full of constellations too bright to be real. Coyotes howled in the distance, normal ones, we hoped. Then Ben said, "There's one more way." I looked up. "You sever it the way the old ones did. Fire and forgetting." Then he reached into the pack behind him and pulled out a small object. A book, my notebook. The one I used in the booth. The one I wrote all the rules in, all the events, the memories. "I took it from your bag while you slept," he said. "You won't like this, but you need to let it go." He opened it and held it near the fire. "Wait." He looked at me. "If you want to be free, the story has to die." The pages caught. Flames swallowed them hungrily. I watched every line of memory I tried to preserve curl and blacken, turning to smoke. Ben stood and emptied the ashes into the fire. "I'll remember," he said. "But you won't." My stomach twisted. "What are you talking about?" He walked to the edge of the campsite. "You survived, Tommy. You paid your price. Now let someone else keep the memory." Then he smiled, tears in his eyes. "Sleep well, big brother." I woke up the next morning in the driver's seat of my car. Engine off, radio silent. No memory of falling asleep. No memory of dreams. Just peace. Ben wasn't in the passenger seat. A folded note sat on the dashboard. "Gone walking. Don't wait. I'll see you when it's really over." I stepped out of the car and stretched. No dread, no pressure, just desert air. Still, warm. The road ahead shimmered under sunlight. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel watched. Whatever the hollow had been, whatever it wanted Ben, had taken it. Not to feed it, to bury it, to be the last one who remembered. And some stories die when the last soul forgets. I got in the car, started the engine, and didn't look in the rearview mirror. Not this time. The past was still there somewhere. But it didn't belong to me anymore. It's been 6 months since I last saw Ben. I live in a quiet town now, somewhere along the coast near Monterey. I rent a 1-bedroom above a garage and fix up old bikes and trucks for cash under the table. Nobody here asks questions. Nobody here knows me as anything but Tommy, the guy who works with his hands. And that's fine, because most days I don't even remember who I used to be. The dreams stopped. The shadows stopped moving in the corners of my eyes. The mirrors, they reflect what they should me older than I remember being. But real, solid, whatever the hollow was, it's gone from me. That's what I tell myself. But then some mornings I wake up with dirt on my boots and no memory of where I've been. Or I find a scratch across the side of my Civic in a pattern that looks carved. Once I woke with the taste of ash in my mouth. Still I keep going because I made it out, and Ben didn't. I got one letter from him. It came 3 months after the fire. No return address, no postmark, just slipped under my door while I was sleeping. The handwriting was his, messy and rushed. "Tommy, I'm still out here. I think I've found where it sleeps when it's not tied to a place. It's like an echo folded into the desert itself. I'm walking it back to silence step by step. It whispers sometimes in Mom's voice, but I keep going. I remember everything. You don't have to. Be free, Ben." I stared at that page for hours. Then I burned it. Not out of anger, out of respect. Ben knew what he was doing. He chose to be the last witness, to carry the memory, the rules, the burden. Someone always had to. If the hollow needed a story to survive, then Ben chose to let it live only in him, so it wouldn't take anyone else. And I chose to let it go. Mostly. Sir. Sometimes when I'm working late, I flip on the shop radio and catch this strange station broadcasting out of nowhere, low volume, no DJ, just a chant. Old, steady, familiar. The same cadence I heard on track 3. The prayer that pushes back the dark. I don't change the station. I let it play. It was a Tuesday when she walked into the shop. Mid-afternoon sun-high breeze off the ocean. She looked normal, jeans, white tank top, canvas boots, but her eyes were the color of old gold, and her smile had too many teeth. She walked right up to the counter and laid a Polaroid down in front of me. It was me, standing outside the ruins of the station, flames behind me. My face blurry, like the camera couldn't quite focus. My hand clutched something, a clay coyote. "I think you dropped this," she said, tapping the photo. My heart stopped. "I don't know what you're talking about." She leaned closer, voice like velvet stretched too thin. "The hollow never forgets, Tommy. It only shifts." I picked up the photo. It was real. Still warm from her hand, the edges smudged with soot. I don't want this. Too late, she said, turning to go. At the door, she paused and looked back. You're not the last one who remembers. And then she was gone. Usum. That night, I took the photo to the cliffs and burned it beneath the stars. I dug a hole with my bare hands and buried the ashes in the sand. No ceremony, just dirt and salt and silence. Afterward, I stood at the edge of the world, watching the ocean chew the moonlight. Behind me, the wind shifted. Footsteps. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. Ben, I asked quietly. No answer, just a soft breath in the dark. Then the sound of boots retreating into the dunes. I think I'll keep moving soon. Not because I'm running, but because I think the hollow is still looking for a home and it remembers its keepers. Maybe that's the price of knowing. Maybe that's why Earl never left. Maybe it's why his wife came back. The desert doesn't forget. That's what our grandmother used to say. But maybe it can forgive if you give it enough fire, enough memory, enough silence. So I drive with the windows down now, letting the wind pull the ghosts out of my hair. I don't stop for roadside stations anymore, not even to pee. I don't trust payphones. I don't sell jerky. I don't look in mirrors when the lights flicker. And I never ever listen when someone calls me by name after dark, because the hollow knows my name and it remembers my voice. But so long as I don't answer, maybe it won't find me again. Not yet. And if it does, well, I've still got one more fire left in me.